Hey folks, Patrick Fabian here, aka the late Howard Hamlin, attorney at law. Welcome to Show Me More, a behind-the-scenes look at how cast and crew created your favorite AMC shows, including the final episodes of one of my favorites, Better Call Saul. If you missed any of these episodes, here's a spoiler alert and a tip. Now might be a good time to watch them. And if you have watched to the end, I hope you've had time to catch your breath and that you're ready to join me as we get into it. While Howard's role in the last half of season 6 was a limited, though challenging role for me, non-speaking, non-moving, for most of it, I got to sit back and watch like you, as a fan. And I bet we went into part 2 with the same questions. How will the Saul story get us to Breaking Bad? What's going to happen to Kim Wexler and to Jimmy and Kim? Where's Gene? Will we really see Walt and Jesse again? And hey, what's going to happen to Kim? We got answers to all of this and more. Showrunner Peter Gould and his Better Call Saul co-creator Vince Gilligan teamed with our extraordinary writers, cast, and crew to take us on an amazing journey in these final episodes as the series wrapped up and the worlds of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad came together. The first part of season 6 ended with a huge cliffhanger after Lalo shoots poor Howard. It still hurts. Some advice from my fellow actors on playing a corpse. If possible, die with your mouth and eyes closed. You'll thank me for this. Jimmy and Kim feel responsible, because they are. And though they survive Lalo, their relationship doesn't. Lalo doesn't survive either, as Gus manages to take him out without Mike, who's left to clean things up.
Easy.
Kim leaves the law and Albuquerque for Florida, where she lives a different, quieter life. Meanwhile, we see Jimmy go full Saul.
All right, let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
And Gene, too. Gene manages to scam half of Omaha before he gets caught. Kim comes clean, finally, for what she did to Howard and urges her ex to do the same. It takes a while, and even some appearances from Walt, Jesse, and others from his past, but in the end, Saul Goodman does confess his sins and goes to prison as Jimmy McGill. Oh, and we can all breathe a sigh of relief for Kim. Her life might be a little less, shall we say, eventful than it was with Jimmy, but she's okay. Now, after Kim left Jimmy, the Saul Goodman we know and mostly love from Breaking Bad fully emerged. The clothes, the comb-over, the office, everything that Bob Odenkirk stepped into to portray Saul with inimitable flair and style. This took teamwork and the talents of people like costume designer Jennifer Bryan, who goes back to season 1 of Breaking Bad, and production designer Denise Pizzini, who created and recreated some iconic Saul sets.
Take a look. What do you think?
About what?
When Breaking Bad ended, one of the few sets that sat in a warehouse was Saul's office.
Recreating the Saul office was a really critical aspect of the season. It tells us that we've arrived at this point in time.
Let's go. Lay it on me.
We're starting with a very iconic set that everybody is familiar with, and we're working backwards. So we're trying to find the history of how that evolved.
Whoa, hold up.
The beginning phase, he goes in, he sets up his little table.
Think of it this way. Half the work.
And then the Francesca phase.
Hi! Come on in. Thanks.
That's really what attracts her to work for him, is that she gets to design the office.
I'm going for a vibe that's professional and refined, but still, you know, inviting.
Our idea was Francesca is decorating this thing based on travel books and magazines.
There is nothing accidental on our show, ever.
The Francesca office has to have the same footprint as a Saul office. We had to feel that it could turn into this iconic set.
What do you think? Pretty great, right?
From the beginning, we always asked ourselves, where does Saul actually live? The more we got to know the guy and understand him, we started realizing this is somebody who lives as Saul 24/7.
Breakfast bar, go ahead, take one.
The vibe was somewhere between Vegas and Versace.
The gold wallpaper, the marble, the golden toilet on a pedestal. It's a little bit like looking inside this guy's id. Maybe my favorite is Saul's closet, because you've always wondered, or at least I have, where does he keep all these clothes? This is the only piece of set dressing I kept from Better Call Saul. It's this fantastic medallion made by our brilliant art department, and it's just one of the zillions of great details that are in Saul's house.
Everything for him is a vibrance. I literally have a rainbow palette, almost like a ladder of color for him.
Feed me, what do we got?
So I had his costume looks arc up to that stereotype that he thought would pull his types of clients in.
Jennifer in the costume department is a big part of creating the character.
What?
All right, let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
Sometimes I'd sneak onto the Saul office set and wish I could have had a scene there. I'm a big Jonathan Banks fan, going back to Breaking Bad and all he did with Mike Emmertrout. So as we got to know each other on Better Call Saul, I said to him, I really hope Mike and Howard get to have a scene together someday. And he said to me, no, you don't, Patrick. You don't want a scene with me. Turns out he was right. But I think his warning applied even more to being in a scene with Tony Dalton, who made Lalo Salamanca as charming and charismatic as he was terrifying. I mean, Lalo even scared Gus Fring, something Giancarlo Esposito vividly captured during their mano-a-mano showdown. And yes, it is pronounced Esposito. Anyways, as we saw, Howard's first scene with Lalo didn't go so well for him, but getting to work with Tony, that was great.
Why did Lalo send you?
He wanted to send my husband, but my husband talked him out of it.
He talked Lalo out of it.
When we were making Breaking Bad, Gustavo Fring was, call him what you will, he was the devil, he was Einstein, he was the smartest guy on that show. Here we are now years later in Better Call Saul, and he is being basically stalked by a guy who may indeed be more clever still.
I feel like Lalo is a worthy opponent because Lalo is so loose and so unafraid of death. And you see that in both of these characters.
Gus Fring, for him, is just the guy he's got to kill, you know?
As an actor, I wish I could have been the one that took Lalo out. I was really looking forward to that, and I thought that's probably where it would go. It didn't.
You done?
No. Not yet.
It was really important to me as a director to see real fear in his eyes, there in the darkness after he's going click, 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 and he runs out of bullets. Seeing that vulnerability in that moment, that was refreshing. I like that.
Lalo had to go. Both were not going to survive. We know Gus survives, but I think Lalo gave us a real run for our money.
So to see it at a heightened level is a turning point for Gus, and it will propel us into seeing Gus's attitude and who he really has become in Breaking Bad.
I remember Vince keep saying, more blood, and I was like, Vince, you're a sick man.
I'm actually the wooziest person you've ever met when it comes to blood. Here, however, he's shot in the throat. He's such a talker, and I like the idea of him losing the ability to use that honeyed voice he has, that charm. But the one thing I did not want him to lose was that killer smile.
I had described the character's death, that he takes one last ugly breath and dies, and he said, ugly? Look at me. Ugly?
I think that they just decided that We needed to get the handsome people out of here. It's not helping. It's not going to be good.
You know, the show was going fine. Things were smooth along. I got new suits and everything, and then you showed up.
One of the most exciting moments in the writer's room this last season for me was when we came up with the idea of the characters of Lalo and Howard Hamlin being buried beneath the concrete floor of the Superlab. And yet, when it comes to directing actors whom you really like and respect and telling them, can you just lie here and play dead? I felt guilty asking them to do that.
Actually, dying there, it's kind of like, wow, okay. So that's where Lalo's buried, man. You know, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that.
It just enriches Breaking Bad after the fact in a way that I find quite thrilling.
I think you're the best bad guy I've ever worked with.
I had no idea Lalo Salamanca was going to be the character that he turned out to be. His mere existence is a result of basically a throwaway line in the first episode that Saul Goodman ever appears in Breaking Bad.
Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo?
Who?
Oh, thank God. Oh, Lalo is amazing. Supremely evil.
He's such a complex character because he has sort of this charisma and this charm, yet he's a ruthless killer, which makes it even scarier.
And the main credit, I think, goes to Tony Dalton. This guy is electrifying.
Tony is absolutely delightful to be around. He's so much fun. He has a confidence on screen and backstage.
I love Tony Dalton. Wonderful actor to work with, always present, always in the moment, and always very clear about what his intention is, but loose enough to take any left or right turn that he would need to take.
Clock sticky, Mrs. Goodman.
His constant fine-tuning of that performance, he makes it look so easy, but he works his butt off. I can't wait to see anything else that Tony does.
It's sad to see him go and sad that he won't be in the kind of final run of things, but it just delights me all the work that he did.
I'm gonna miss everybody here. It was a great crew, and it's great to be able to be part of this whole universe and to have people really, you know, sort of embrace the character and like him, you know? I think that's wonderful. I feel super honored with that.
Not every actor gets to know the guy who kills him off. When we rehearsed that scene, Tony made his entrance, and the first time he put the rubber gun up to my head, I looked at him and I said, "Tony?" And he said, "Sorry, man. It's what the script says I have to do." And then he flashed that smile. I was like, okay. But Tony and I became good friends. And I think it's oddly kind of nice that our characters got to spend eternity together. But perhaps nobody took Howard's death harder than Jimmy and Kim. And while I didn't exactly feel sorry for them, I was fascinated to see how it impacted them both as a couple and as individuals.
Other people suffer because of us.
I even found myself pulling for them toward the end. Crazy, right?
Things do not look good for Kim and Jimmy after Howard gets shot.
You could say Howard is in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it feels biblical somehow.
Having that happen at the halfway mark is this incredible engine that drove the second half, because you have these characters that can no longer avoid the damage that they are creating.
Sure, they didn't pull the trigger, but there's a lot of blood on their hands.
One day we'll wake up and at some point we'll suddenly realize that we haven't thought about it at all.
I don't think you could live with what they manufactured in a willful way. Whatever their bullshit excuse about they're gonna, settle Sandpiper by doing this and therefore get money for a bunch of old people and get their own money. It just was a ruse they told themselves to justify having a plot against someone they resented for no good reason.
Arguably, what happens to him is partially their responsibility. That's a heavy load to carry.
You asked if you were bad for me. We are bad for each other.
No, just tell me what I need to do to change, okay? Just tell me what it is and I'll do it.
They want to be together, they love each other, and yet, for the good of the world and themselves, they don't really belong together. I think that's the central tragedy of the show.
Ultimately, they don't trust that their relationship has strong enough roots to withstand honesty.
I think they break up because you can't live with what you did and what you saw, and it's hard as hell to go on after a tragedy like that.
That breakup was Kim realizing that she cannot stomach who she's become.
I think it is the most heartbreaking moment of his life when he realizes that Kim is truly leaving, and hard cutting from that to full Saul. I think it says an awful lot, and I find it funny and sad and heartbreaking.
We're gonna sing at 5. Oh, great. Let me see.
Then she goes away and she just tries to disappear. She just doesn't want to be noticed, and is kind of just a shell of a person who tries to reinvent herself, freeing herself of this albatross.
Finally, she comes clean in terms of this character assassination of Howard Hamlin. Then she has this breakdown scene, which is my favorite scene in episode 12.
Oh, God!
The way she breaks down, I was awestruck. I got to ride along on the bus, and it was electrifying, just as it is when you watch the finished scene.
It's an incredible moment to see Kim Wexler, who has really been a pillar of strength through the whole show, and to see her truly break down is, it's quite a moment.
You should turn yourself in.
I think there is love when she tells him you got to turn yourself in. I know you. You can't just live with this. There is a truer you than that, is I think how she felt.
Fact is, Walter White couldn't have done it without me.
Jimmy finally giving up Saul and returning to Jimmy, I think tells us so much.
I don't know if it's redemption, it's just acceptance. Acceptance of what they've done, of where they've ended up, and I think some kind of acceptance of we have a partnership that the universe decided we have. Whether that means Kim visits him once a year, I think it's not much, but it's something.
I think they've come to a place where they understand each other in a way that's kind of wonderful.
I want them to live happily ever after, but it's just not meant to be, and the closest version we could get to that in the final episode, the most truthful version of that was we see they still love each other on some level. I think for me personally, this version is more satisfying, even if it makes me sad sometimes.
86 years. With good behavior? Who knows?
That last scene with Jimmy and Kim left us with a lot to think about. Are they healed? Redeemed? It's hard to say. Even Peter Gould's finale script doesn't give this away. But Jimmy and Kim's bond is undeniable. Whether or not that's a good thing. What is clear is that as actors, Bob Odenkirk and Ray Seahorn brought so much dimension and complexity to Jimmy and Kim, the central relationship of the show. Their scenes always lit up the screen. The end of Jimmy and Kim's relationship helps explain why Kim isn't in Breaking Bad. She was starting over in Florida, and that's where she remained while Gene was in Nebraska, where we saw a lot of him in the second half as he scammed Omaha and met his unlikely downfall in Marion, played by the legendary Carol Burnett. The production team worked hard with our writers and directors, such as Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, to create these two new and different worlds, and shot them mostly without leaving Albuquerque. Watching these episodes, you'd never know.
Here you go, ma'am.
Coming into the second half of the final season, we had to create two different new worlds. One world we've delved into before, the world of Omaha, Nebraska, that Gene Takovic has been living in for a while now.
It was all kind of limited, but now, this season, we're really living in Gene's world with Gene.
The Omaha world exploded in this final season, and much due to our casting of Carol Burnett.
When you're ready, Carol.
Geez, working with Carol Burnett was the greatest thing ever. I just love her, and I grew to love her more. Her spirit is what brought her to the level of success she had, which is massive.
If you'd told me back in the 70s when I was watching the Carol Burnett show with my mom, I'd be writing for her and directing her, man, I can't even, she is such a living legend. This has been a highlight of my life.
Jeffy, this is Mr. Takovic.
Call me Gene.
We didn't shoot a frame in Omaha. We shot it all in Albuquerque.
There is a challenge involved with that because Albuquerque does not look a whole lot like Omaha, Nebraska. We had a company put down fake snow for us. And you're standing out there amongst all this fake snow, and very quickly your brain computes that it's real snow, and it makes you feel about 20 degrees colder than you already do.
The trickiest thing for us to find was Marion's house.
We had to find a real location that worked for the exterior and that had this sort of back garage.
We did find Marion's house. It's in a part of town that's been home to a lot of different houses on both shows. In fact, Jesse's parents' house is right up the street. The exterior, of course, is location, and some of the interior is location also, but the kitchen was all built, and that's a set.
We wanted to make sure we felt like we're going back in time with the set decoration.
I'm looking at the stove and the phone, knickknacks, cookie jars, and there's a clock on the wall that my mom is gonna love. It's a bird clock. It's got 12 different birds, and on the hour it has a different bird call. So many appliances back of that era were avocado color. I'm glad we shot the whole thing in black and white, but you lose some of that detail of color.
Action.
Black and white helped us in a lot of cases, and it was a little challenging in some other cases.
All of us in the show sort of like, oh my gosh, you'd have to consciously look at something and go, how is that going to look in black and white?
You want to be sure that there's enough contrast within the colors. So what I would do is I did a whole series of samples of different tones of colors, and then I would shoot them in black and white, and it was kind of amazing. Like yellow just becomes the same as this medium gray. And also adding textures and patterns are really important as well.
But the harder thing still is creating Florida. That was a new one for everybody.
Florida, Florida, Florida. Why there?
I guess
it doesn't matter. Doesn't have to make sense.
I wanted it to feel new and fresh, but a little soulless. So in Florida, even though it's black and white, I have shinier surfaces. We used a lighter palette for Florida. We built a lot of palm trees. We shipped a bunch from Los Angeles and a bunch of tropical plants. So we carried the Florida package with us everywhere. So everywhere we saw outside a window or something, we would put some of our tropical plants or put a palm tree in the background. And again, covering New Mexico.
We were playing like sitting outside having lunch in the hot Florida sun with my coworkers, and it was freezing cold in a parking lot in Albuquerque.
Florida was important to us. It was important to put her into a different environment. She's kind of experimenting with a different identity.
In the writer's room, we started to refer to her as Stepford Kim. If you remember the movie The Stepford Wives, because there's something a little off about her. She's not quite right.
It was really a tricky change of character to navigate.
The wig and that sad, sad clothing. It was pretty easy to go like, oh, this is who you are. This is just deflate everything. That part of like being snapped into it when it was time to go was easier because of how hard the production department worked.
I had to really not even look at that wardrobe that I had for her before and literally started from scratch in absence of color, subdued prints. But the other characters and her co-workers that she meets in Florida at this pipe supply company that she's working for, they are more Florida. So you can see that she's kind of like round peg in a square hole. You want to know that it's her, but you also want to know that she's not who she was.
I felt the tragedy of this brilliant lawyer that's so capable and so interesting, enigmatic, and to just be this like shell person is just really heartbreaking. It's part of what I meant when I told people death is not the only tragedy. It was great. Yeah, it was hard and great.
If you ever need to substitute New Mexico for Florida or Nebraska, better call the Better Call Saul production team. Okay, maybe it was inevitable that we would see Walter White and Jesse Pinkman again. But there was nothing in any script I ever saw or even heard about that gave away their return. So I was as excited as you were to see Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul in new scenes, together with Bob and Ray, filling in iconic moments, weaving the worlds of two shows into one, and giving everything just the right mix of depth, surprise, and humor.
Habla, por favor. Yo soy abogado. Abogado, abogado. Oh.
I don't think this is going to surprise our fans when I say that the idea of bringing back Walter White and Jesse Pinkman was with us from day one.
Hello. This is so great to be back.
To me, I've just kept shooting that show. I go to Albuquerque. We're on the same stages. There's even some of the same sets. And we go to locations where we went in Breaking Bad. I've just played this guy for 12 years. I don't know where they went.
You know, I haven't seen Breaking Bad in so many years since it really aired.
I've never seen it. I hear it's good.
Everyone's asked us, when are we going to see Walt and Jesse? Are we going to see Walt and Jesse?
We love these characters as much as anybody does, but we wanted to get them in at the right moment.
When we realized how their presence could deepen the story, we got very excited in the writer's room.
Oh, no, 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 no! No! It wasn't me! It was Ignacio! He's the one!
But we didn't know if Ignacio or Lalo were ever going to show up in Breaking Bad.
Right.
Kind of glad they didn't.
Revisiting one of the first scenes with Saul is super fun.
Of course, for me, it's especially nostalgic because that scene is an extension of a scene that I wrote back in season 2 of Breaking Bad.
When we slipped into my character's clothes, that's when I did it for me.
Yeah.
When I put on those khakis and I had the glasses and it was like, oh my God.
It's happening.
It was like, it's coming back.
Really brings things full circle to see what happened after Saul kind of he starts realizing who these guys really are. And of course, the sparks fly.
If you cook the blue stuff, then that means you're Igor, and that makes you your Heisenberg.
You watch this scene and it's fun seeing these guys together again, but you start to realize Walter White wouldn't fully have been Walter White without the aid and intervention of Saul Goodman. That allows you to see both shows in a slightly different light.
Seeing Walt and Jesse does give you context for Jimmy's arc into Saul. You're reminded of who Saul was, and you're reminded of how far we've come in the story, and I think that's really important.
I love seeing Jesse and Kim. These are two characters with such big hearts, such big souls, and to have them encounter each other so briefly and they pass like ships in the night. It's beautiful.
It was so much fun to feel like I got to be a part of that Breaking Bad world and to get to do a scene with Aaron Paul, who I just adore and he's lovely. It was such a joy.
When we first meet Jesse Pinkman, way back, the better part of 2 decades ago in real life, he's into the older sexy ladies, so it was really fun seeing Jesse check out Kim Wexler. I enjoyed that a lot.
This guy, any good?
When I knew him, he was.
The juxtaposition of those two people's energy in that moment, and one that's about to have a life with Saul and one that had a life with Jimmy, was just so cool and such a great thing to do, to butt those two people up against each other in that particular moment in their lives.
On a personal level, it was great having those guys back, but I think the thing we're most proud of is that their appearance on the show, on 3 episodes of the show, in fact, actually moved forward our understanding of who Saul is.
No. What? Speak up.
That particular scene, it's like a play. The two guys stuck in this underground chamber beneath the Disappearer's vacuum cleaner store, and just what a pressure cooker that is for both of them. And what a terrible roommate Walter White was.
So you were always like this?
Jimmy is a bit of a product of his brother. Chuck's lack of love and respect helped create the Jimmy McGill that eventually needed to become Saul Goodman.
He's realizing I had Chuck with his hand on my head holding me down, and now somehow I got Walter White, who did that to me. How the did I do that twice in one lifetime? But it's that thing of people sort of recreate the good and the bad from their life.
Bob, thank you so much for having us on your beautiful show.
It's a great honor, right? To have these guys here. I mean, we're here because of Breaking Bad.
Big thanks to Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. mean, these guys are like the two busiest guys in show business, and they made the time to come back and make it happen. It was just such a pleasure.
It's great to see him again. We had so much fun.
Making those moments happen felt like time travel for all involved. It's a testament to both their skill and their ability to keep a secret that they did it so seamlessly. In fact, time travel was a major theme of this final season, and we got clued into that right at the start by showrunner Peter Gould, who also wrote the first episode of season 6, where we saw the H.G. Wells novel The Time Machine in Saul's house. The book was referenced throughout season 6. But why?
First thing we do, take $6 million and build a time machine.
H.G. Wells' book, The Time Machine, is not about changing your own past. It's about vast, titanic changes in humanity.
Where would you go first, huh? You look like a history buff, right?
Mike is the one who turns the question about a time machine into a question about regrets.
Day I took my first bribe.
And in this final episode, there are 3 flashbacks.
My regrets.
The Chuck conversation doesn't seem to be about regrets on its surface.
If you don't like where you're heading, there's no shame in going back and changing your path.
When have you ever changed your path?
But you can see that Chuck is the one who's having regrets in the scene, at least in my book.
We always end up having the same conversation, don't we?
I'll see you tomorrow, Chuck.
It's a little bit of a circle, but it's ultimately about, I think, taking responsibility and how painful it is to be truthful with yourself.
I have regrets.
This character was fascinating for us, and he grew more fascinating as the seasons progressed, and there's just something sad about him. And then, to me, there's a lot of wistfulness and regret. That's what the show is for me, with some occasional moments of humor and terror thrown in for good measure.
Saul Goodman, speedy justice for you.
While many of our questions were answered as the series wrapped up, that doesn't mean everything turned out the way we thought it would, or that we weren't left with some big what-ifs.
This show, in particular, is a show about what could have been.
Is there no other way, truly?
What if Jimmy had never gone after the Kettlemans in episode 1?
Here's Johnny!
He wouldn't have brought him in contact with Nacho. He wouldn't have brought him in contact with Tuco.
Good afternoon.
What if Nacho, instead of trying to kill Tuco, had just left?
Next!
Yeah, he's fun, he's colorful as a bad guy, as a crooked lawyer, but he could have been a great lawyer. And then he and Kim together, and she's doing the same thing. These two underdogs together, making the world a better place to live in.
I knew you had it in you.
Great.
But that show would have been more triumphant. It would have been happier. I don't know that it would have been as interesting.
What if Howard does something terrible?
What if Jimmy and Kim realize at some point that the scam was not worth it?
It happens today. If she didn't make the U-turn. If she had gone to meet Cliff.
Your character has a broken arm now.
Here.
So what does it say?
You passed the bar?
Yeah.
What if Chuck had just brought Jimmy in as an associate?
Are you proud of me?
I think it would have been nice for Chuck to be like, hey, you're my brother. I'll give you a shot.
Consider hiring me.
As what?
What if Jimmy didn't out his brother to the insurance person?
My brother is sick.
What if Jimmy hadn't lashed out like a petulant child and pretended to cry and do all the things that he did?
He's making mistakes with his clients. He's mixing up numbers on important documents. It doesn't just make him lose a case or whatever. It makes him lose his sense of self.
Everything there just tipped the dominoes toward Chuck's death.
As bad as his brother treated him, you gotta know when to walk away from a bad person and not just try to beat them.
I think my biggest surprise in the show is how much hope I have for the future of these people still.
It's all good, man.
What if Jimmy and Kim had just left Howard alone? Can't quite shake that one for some reason. It's hard enough saying goodbye to a character, believe me. But to say goodbye to a series, and one as special as Better Call Saul, the emotions can run pretty deep. I think Bob said it best. We did it all, he said. We checked off all the boxes of what it's like to come together as a group and make this wonderful piece of television that we're all so very, very proud of. This moment in time, it'll never happen again.
Lawyers, we're like health insurance. You hope you never need it, but man, oh man, not having it? No.
Ow, what the hell, man?
It's showtime, folks. It's all good, man.
When Vince suggested he might write a show about Saul, and Peter as well, I always said, if you think there's a show there, feel free, I'll do it.
I didn't realize Saul Goodman was going to turn out to be as interesting as he is.
You son of a bitch!
And that is the result of a lot of things. First and foremost, Peter Gould, Melissa Bernstein, and working with the writers that we hired, all of them fantastic.
Today I'm actually directing the series finale, and that's why we're here.
As we're wrapping up Better Call Saul, I'm kind of exactly where I was when we were doing Breaking Bad, which was this weird sense of denial that it's not over yet, it's not over yet.
I'm devastated. I can't believe it's over. It's been a huge part of my life.
It still doesn't feel like we're done. I mean, part of me feels like I'm going back in 3 months to shoot more.
It's really sad to say goodbye to these characters. There have definitely been tears on set and sad last moments. It does feel like the end of an era.
We had chemistry there from the beginning, thank goodness, and have become very close friends.
The other part of letting go of this is the family.
What an incredible group of talented people came together to make the show. And it will be my mission to continue to work with them and make new things and have this as our shared history.
It's wildly exciting to be a part of it and just be back with a lot of people that I love and adore. And we did a show together that honestly changed my life.
Best role of my career with some of the greatest performers that one could ever hope to be in a scene with.
What kind of lawyer are you gonna be?
There's no point in me doing this if I can't be myself.
It changed my life. Being an actor, learning about acting in a way I never thought about or tried to, has been a journey and a challenge, but in the best way of like doing something hard and finding some degree of confidence in it. It's been unbelievable.
It is such a strange thing to feel this moment and think about this space right here where I first walked in as such a stranger to this show and pretty much waiting for them to kick me out and tell me to go home.
Thank you for being with us in this storytelling journey for 15 years with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Thank you for investing in the story. You guys are brilliant. I'm grateful and humbled by all the energy and love that you've sent our way.
I feel so proud to have been doing these two shows for the past 15 years.
Is it successful? Very.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap!
Thanks for watching Show Me More. And thanks for watching Better Call Saul. Remember, you can catch episodes of Better Call Saul on the AMC site and apps and on demand. Until we meet again, I'm Patrick Fabian.